Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone joining us from around the globe. On behalf of the Global Tracheostomy Collaborative, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, Innovative Products in Tracheostomy Care, Emerging Ideas and Solutions. We're truly grateful that you've taken the time to join us for this important conversation. As all of you know, tracheostomy care is complex and deeply interprofessional. It requires the expertise of clinicians across the disciplines, as well as the voices and experiences of people living with a tracheostomy, families and caregivers. Across acute care, community settings, rehabilitation, long-term care, and home care, we continue to see opportunities to improve safety, comfort, communication, airway management, monitoring, and the overall quality of life. So today's webinar focuses on emerging and innovative technologies designed to address some of the common adverse effects and complications associated with tracheostomy care. And innovation in this space is essential. New technologies, including various monitoring systems and devices, have the potential to reduce preventable complications and support earlier recognition of risk and improve day-to-day management. So we have wonderful clinicians and innovators who are going to be sharing their experience, their real-world their experiences in coming up with innovative ideas or solutions to real-world problems at the bedside and across care settings. So I am hoping that today's presentations will not only inform, but also spark new thinking, new partnerships, and future work to advance tracheostomy care globally. I'm delighted to introduce our moderators for today's session. Our first moderator is Sandy Foster, who's a clinical nurse consultant at Monash Children's Hospital in Melbourne, Australia, and she brings valuable clinical expertise in pediatric tracheostomy care and interprofessional practice. And our second moderator is Michael O'Brien, who's also chair of the Education Committee, and he brings extensive experience in complex medical care, multidisciplinary teamwork, patient and family education, and innovative approaches to respiratory therapy practice. His broad perspective, which also includes interests in theology and choral music, brings both depth and humanity to the work of education and collaborative care. So thank you, Michael and Sandy, for moderating this important webinar. We're grateful for your leadership and for helping us create a meaningful global conversation.
Vincia, thank you for that introduction. And hello and welcome to all of our attendees who are watching this live or who will be watching the recording later. I am Michael O'Brien. I am the Education Chair of the Global Tracheostomy Collaborative. My Vice Chair, Sandy Foster, and I are very honored and privileged to be able to offer you this webinar on tracheostomy innovations. We have a delightful panel of multidisciplinary healthcare professionals and also a person living with a tracheostomy tube herself. Tonight, we're going to talk to you about some of the innovative products and solutions that these people have created to manage tracheostomy care. And we hope to inform you about how these solutions could positively impact the care that you either give or you receive. Sandy, take it away.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce Darleen Sawyer. She's a registered nurse and she has over 30 years pediatric and geriatric experience. She specialises in complex respiratory management, including tracheostomy and ventilator support. Her frontline experience witnesses the life-altering consequences of hypoxic brain injuries, and that drove her to co-invent the Trach Alarm, a medical device designed to prevent accidental decannulation. She's a dedicated advocate for respiratory safety, combining deep clinical expertise with a mission to eliminate preventable airway emergencies. Her career is defined by her commitment to evidence-based care, patient safety, innovation, and improving the quality of life for families navigating the challenges of long-term tracheostomy. And we also have Dorothy. She has over 30 years as a licensed practice nurse, and she brings extensive expertise across pediatrics, geriatrics, rehabilitation, and acute care. She specialises in home care for pediatric patients requiring tracheostomies and ventilation management, providing skilled clinical support, vigilant monitoring, and compassionate family education. Her work in complex respiratory care has revealed critical gaps in current safety systems, and that has inspired her to co-invent the trach alarm to reduce the risk of accidental decannulation. She's dedicated to advancing respiratory safety, delivering evidence-based care with precision and empathy, and improving quality of life for medically fragile patients and families. So thank you very much. We'll let you guys do your presentation.
Hello. We're honored to be here with the Global Tracheostomy Collaborative today, a community that is dedicated to improving tracheostomy care worldwide. So we're the co-founders of Innovations Unlimited and inventors of the trach alarm. And today we're sharing an innovation designed to address one of the most dangerous and time-critical emergencies in tracheostomy care. A tracheostomy tube can appear perfectly secure and still come out. Sometimes the ties loosen, but often nothing appears wrong. Then a patient turns their head, coughs, shifts in bed, or moves in a certain way, and the tube dislodges or decannulates.
When that happens, the patient cannot breathe. They cannot speak. They cannot call for help. There is no alarm, no signal, no warning. Accidental decannulation remains one of the leading causes of preventable brain injury and death in tracheostomy patients. Even with excellent safety protocols and vigilant teams, it can happen in seconds.
And we saw this problem again and again. We knew it didn't have to end in tragedy, and together we built to detect the moment it begins.
Trach alarm is a compact sensor-based device that continuously monitors the position of the tracheostomy tube. If the tube begins to come out, trach alarm immediately alerts caregivers with a loud, unmistakable alarm.
So trach alarm is non-invasive. Nothing enters the airway. It's simple. It attaches in seconds. It's reliable. It's engineered to avoid false alarms. It's versatile. Works in hospitals, long-term care facilities, rehabs, and home care. It's portable and it's wireless. Trach alarm includes two components: a wearable device, which is placed near the tracheostomy tube, and a charging base station that also functions as a secondary alarm. Both components provide red flashing visual alerts and a clear audible alarm. Our purpose is straightforward: to detect accidental decannulation instantly so caregivers can replace the tube before brain injury or death occurs. So how it works? The trach alarm uses a sensor mechanism that detects when the tracheostomy tube begins to dislodge from its secured position.
If the ties loosen or the tube shifts, the device triggers audible and visual alerts, giving caregivers immediate alertness and critical seconds to react. There's no complicated setup, just a small device that adds a vital layer of safety. Why this matters? Across ICUs, step-down units, long-term care facilities, and home care settings, we heard the same message. Accidental decannulation is common. It's dangerous and it's often silent. Families caring for loved ones at home told us they lived with the constant fear, especially at night. Nurses told us they wish they had one more set of eyes. And respiratory therapists told us they've been waiting for something like this for years.
The trach alarm doesn't prevent accidental decannulation, it detects it. And that detection gives caregivers the chance to intervene before irreversible harm occurs. So we've spent years refining the design, testing prototypes, and validating the technology with clinicians, engineers, and caregivers.
And today, we're proud to share the trach alarm is ready for market. We are in the final stages of distribution channels, and we expect the device to be available to the public this year. This includes manufacturing scale-up, distribution partnerships, early adopter programs with hospitals, home care organizations, and preparing for a pilot study. We built Trachealarm because the need is urgent and nothing available addressed the unmet need. The solution is finally here. Our vision for the future is a world where every tracheostomy patient in every setting has access to real-time detection and of accidental decannulation.
We believe Trachealarm can become the standard of care because it solves a problem that should no longer cost lives. We're here today because innovation only matters when it reaches patients. We're looking for clinical partners, early adopters, implementation sites, feedback from the GTC community, and we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to our website at www.innovationsunlimitedllc.com.
If you're passionate about preventing avoidable harm, and we know this community is, we'd love to collaborate with you. Thank you for your time and your commitment to tracheostomy safety.
Trachealarm is coming soon. Together we can detect silent emergencies and prevent tragedies and hospital length of stay. Do you want to show that? Just a picture, just hold it up.
And we have brought Trachealarm here today to show you how little and compact and it is. Did you want to say anything? Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for that presentation. The next speaker is Nina. Nina grew up in Phoenix and attended Arizona State University, where she studied global health. She then went on to the University of Cambridge to continue graduate studies that surrounded her interest in global health, health policy and surgical care. Prior to medical school, she worked at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on innovations to improve health outcomes in low-resource settings. While in medical school, Nina was introduced to otolaryngology through her mentors and quickly became interested in the field after witnessing how the care could transform patients' lives by restoring function and improving quality of life. Her academic interests also include global otolaryngology, surgical education, and strengthening health systems in resource-limited settings. Nina is now an incoming otolaryngology resident at the University of Chicago. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you so much, Sandy, and I'm honored to be here to have to get this opportunity to share some of the work that we've done. I'll be presenting on the development, implementation, and evaluation of a novel, low-cost 3D printed tracheostomy simulation model in Rwanda. So a little bit of context, this project really started out as a simple conversation. In a country like Rwanda, there are roughly 30 trained ENT surgeons in a population that is over 14 million. And what we realized is, given this limited ENT sort of access, a lot of times airway management in particular is done by general practitioners and primary care workforce members. And so in speaking and sort of probing further in qualitative research, we realized that even though these primary care physicians and general practitioners are oftentimes managing airway and specifically tracheostomy care, we realize that actually they have very low comfort and confidence in doing so. And, this can be sort of one of the reasons attributed, as they explain, to the lack of structured tracheostomy training programs, and in particular, lack of simulation skills-based training within the country and generally in lower and middle income countries. And so digging further, as we kind of know, in the field and in airway models in particular, we have sort of this range of simulation-based materials at our disposal. And currently, there's sort of what we call low fidelity models. These are photos and examples shared with us from general practitioners within the country of Rwanda. And this is what we consider low fidelity, but oftentimes is done in a very cost-effective, cheap manner. Here you can see these were all done with spending less than $1. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have what we call high fidelity models. These are oftentimes more anatomically correct in the US and at my own institutions. These are seen regularly and are used for regular training and skills-based practice, but these can be upwards of $3,000. So really the goal was, how do we bridge these worlds? Can we create something that is low cost, but yet still higher fidelity than what we had seen in the previous examples? And we thought perhaps 3D printing could be the way in which we bridge that gap. And so the idea was, can we create a model, create something in this sort of high fidelity space, and pair it with simulation-based training, a curriculum to evaluate for how skills can be improved and the efficacy of this model. And so a little bit of the backstory of how we created the simulation model. This was done in collaboration with the Makers Lab at UCSF. And we went through multiple iterations to be able to create something that balanced these factors that we talked about. We wanted something that was still relatively low cost, so we could produce this in a lower resource setting, but still higher fidelity, thinking about anatomical accuracy. At the same time. And so we went through, as you can see here, multiple iterations. We went and exhibited the model to ENT providers in Rwanda. We gained resident feedback in the US and inevitably piloted this model at a general practitioner training in Rwanda. And then specifically looking here at some of the prototypes we went through to create this, we had multiple iterations. You can see we started with an early prototype and ended in that third prototype as our final sort of creation. And when balancing all of these factors, we were able to bring down the cost of a simulation model to costing each one cost $32. And so a little bit about the curriculum that we then created to pair with this model. We partnered with Dr. Gresham and a team of Rwandan ENT physicians. And based on an early needs assessment, we gathered data on what information, what sort of skills were wanted by general practitioners during the training. And from there, created a curriculum to sort of supplement that model we had. And so a little bit about the background of this initial pilot training we conducted in April of 2025. We had 40 general practitioners attend, and as you can see here with this heat map distribution, we touched almost every district within the country of Rwanda with a higher sort of representation closer to the city of Kigali, the capital. But overall, as we can see, the mean clinical practice experience of those attending were about 3 years. And so overall, you can see some pictures here of the model in use during the training, but we found that overall 3D printing generally was a very cost-effective way to increase anatomical accuracy with creating this simulation training. And overall, the primary care providers that attended the session found the training valuable, and there was reinforced need and enthusiasm for the work. And so in our pre and post assessments during the training on this day, we found that there were statistically significant increases in knowledge, in confidence, and skill, which we evaluated a number of techniques that we found most relevant for tracheostomy management with this population. And then again, participants during the session rated the training to be highly relevant and valuable for their own clinical practice as general practitioners. So next steps, and I think we'll get more into this later, but really, this was a snapshot, a pilot study to show proof of concept and the ways in which 3D printing can really be utilized to bridge these sort of low resource settings, but still provide sort of these tools of high anatomical accuracy simulation models. And so sort of next steps, we have conducted this past month a secondary curriculum training session with general practitioners. And with that, we hope to now be able to collect long-term skills retention and inevitably, as alluded to before, this really, the long-term sort of ways in which this can impact patient care is what we hope to evaluate further to see how this is impacting at the patient level. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
What a great tool that's affordable everywhere.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gil. He is a fellowship-trained pediatric otolaryngologist. He works with pediatric patients and their families to determine the best treatment, medical or surgical, based on the condition and its effects on their quality of life. He also holds a degree in electronics engineering and is interested in medical devices, R&D, innovation and teaching. In his free time, he enjoys basketball, swimming and biking.
Hi, can I advance the slides now?
Yes.
Okay, so thanks for having me. I'll present SmartTrach, which is a project I've been working on for a while now. Basically, to sum it up, the proof of concept device that we have now looks something like this. It's a cap and a strap solution designed as a platform to help with monitoring and hopefully optimizing care of patients with tracheostomy. The kind of rudimentary function, and I'll go into that in a bit, is to monitor vital signs and alarm if something goes wrong, such as accidental decannulation. Here you can see me breathing and getting results of CO2 and oxygen saturation. When I stop breathing through the trach, you'll see that after an allotted amount of time, the vital signs drop, and then there is an alarm that goes off. So in terms of the clinical need, persons and patients with tracheostomies are at high risk for adverse events, both in and out of the hospital. For me personally, the motivation came from initially being a resident and being called to different departments across the hospital where patients had accidental decannulation or plugging of their cannulas. And I am somewhat ashamed to say that as a attending as well in my previous hospital, this happened on an ENT floor with ENT nurses. So I really think it can happen anywhere. And among the risk factors are the cannula itself, which is a foreign body in the airway, the impaired ability to call for help. Usually the patients or the persons have significant comorbidities. This is a significant effect on the quality of life for both the persons themselves, their families, and their caretakers. And there is also a significant need for good nursing. And studies show that nurses themselves feel many times that they are ill-prepared or anxious when dealing with tracheostomies. Hopefully, we can help with that respect as well. I think that the wearable hardware, the tracheostomy, provides an opportunity here as well. And also, I would like to use the opportunity of this webinar to kind of gauge the stakeholders themselves. So we sent out a survey link, and thank you for everybody who filled it out. To here, I have to say that as a surgeon in the hospital, I am somewhat spoiled. I see the patients mainly in the operating room where they are monitored very well. They are not moving, or in the ICU where they're connected to a lot of sensors and in a bed. But obviously, we want the people with the persons with tracheostomies to ambulate, and we don't want them in bed, but we do want to monitor them well. And hopefully this will provide something which allows for that level of monitoring. But again, I feel like the physicians are sometimes spoiled. The real challenge is at home or at long-term facilities. And I want to hear, I think all of us want to hear from all the stakeholders. And so on the survey, and we'll send a post-webinar survey as well, would appreciate to hear from you. What I'm trying to get at is that this thing that I'm trying to make happen is basically a platform, and I'll explain. And the features I have right now are the features that I think of as important in terms of vital signs monitoring, but I'm not sure if they are the same for everyone. And so, again, I would appreciate your intake about this. In terms of the project itself and the innovative steps taken, like I said, the trach itself provides an opportunity for high quality monitoring with immediate access to the relevant anatomy. We went for a cap and a strap solution. We did not want, when I say we, I mean me and two engineers that work with me. We did not want to manufacture new trachs or change the basic care treatment that everybody's used to. So we wanted something that can fit any cannula. The distal end of it is standard vent tubing if needed for venting, and it is easily removed and allowing access to the cannula and suctioning, etc. We wanted, like I said, to make the cannula a smart platform with instant alarms, AI-driven prediction model for care, both for deterioration acutely and for optimizing the specific needs of a patient, such as timing of suctioning, etc. Again, this platform hopefully in the future will be able to provide additional solutions for other concerns such as improved communication, anxiety, etc. The proposed device eventually will look something like this. There is a cap that monitors end-tidal CO2, flow of air through it, temperature, and through it respiratory rate. The strap will house, two saturation sensor, which also provide the pulse rate. We are thinking of implementing other sensors as well to measure cuff pressure if needed, galvanic skin response, skin pressure, motion, etc. The battery and the communications will be placed along the strap, and the data will be wirelessly transmitted to a mobile device and electronic medical record for a facility of the hospital or facility or the hospital. In terms of where we're at, we filed initially a provisional patent, and now we have a patent filed. And like I said, we have proof of concept completed and tested on one volunteer with a tracheostomy and working well. I would like to thank you. There are some challenges which I may go into a little bit further down the road, and I appreciate any questions.
Thank you so much, Gil. And our next speaker is Barbara. She's been an RN for 30 years in IV therapy and oncology, and she retired 10 years ago. And she also has a tracheostomy. She chose a skin line tracheostomy 23 years ago for severe obstructive sleep apnea when CPAP would not keep her airway open. She has a flat hood stoma stent for the first 14 years, and then 9 years ago, she had an airway obstruction, so now wears a regular trachea tube. She's been the moderator of Facebook Tracheostomy Warriors for the last 8 years with over 9,000 members. Thank you, Barbara.
Hello, I'm Barb Bosworth, and when I first got a regular trach tube 9 years ago, those Velcro foam trach ties are they're hot and they're damp, and it's like I was not going to deal with that. And so I do make jewelry, and I'm a beader, and so I pretty quickly decided I need some sort of chain to hold my trach tube. And so the first chain that I tried was too narrow and it cut into my skin. And it's like, well, let's try something else. And so I have found, I use a stainless steel, you can see it in the photo here, a stainless steel chain. Don't get just a silver color chain because the silver will wear off. And don't get chains at Michael's or Hobby Lobby because those are base metal and they'll tarnish and get rough pretty quickly. The size that I use is 5 millimeters, which is less than 1/4 of an inch. 6 millimeters would be 1/4 of an inch. I've used the same chain for over 9 years. I only change the hooks and the oval jump rings about once a year because they do tarnish. And you can get chains at Kohl's or JCPenney's for $30 to $100, but you could also find the same thing on Amazon or just Google for like $10 or $15. And so it's not an expensive option. I can shampoo my hair and not worry about it. I change them, only when I change my trach tube, which is every 10 to 12 weeks. Next. So the next photo is the back of my neck. And so I use hooks, not lobster clasps. I can get them off, but I cannot get it back on. So I do have my husband that helps me when I do a chain change. So what I do is I just drape the chain on the back of my neck and I insert the hooks and clasps into the faceplate holes from the inside to the outside, fold things back to behind my ears, and then hook it into the larger holes. So this figural style chain that I use, it has like 3 small holes and 1 large hole. So it's easy to find the hole that will fit my neck pretty well. So as far as jump rings, everybody's used to round jump rings, and the problem with round jump rings is they spin and spin and spin, and then you can see there's a small opening, and eventually when that small opening meets resistance, it can slide out and fail. I like oval jump rings because the opening is away from any kind of tension. So the tension will be on the sides and the opening will be at the top, and so that way it's a lot easier to have stability because that's what's holding everything together. And so if you when you're working with jump rings, you do need 2 pairs of pliers, and to open and close them. You can find jump rings at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, but also a jewelry store can also assist you in doing stuff like this. And these are the hooks that I use. I don't use lobster clasps. Sometimes they're hard to maneuver. So for me, these are easy to get on and easy to get off. And eventually they do kind of wear. So I do change them about once a year. I do change them and the jump rings. So you may have noticed on my close-up, there's a sponge underneath my faceplate. And this works great for me because, of course, most of us, our stoma hole is slightly bigger than the trach tube. And so there's some air leakage, and that also affects how we sound when we speak. And so I came up with this paint sponge. And it's about a 1/2 inch thick, which is probably too wide for most people with trachs, but I have the extra length trach tube, and so I got a little bit more room to work with. And this also will trap any kind of mucus that I rarely have. I change it usually before I go to bed. Just wash it with I squirt some hydrogen peroxide to get rid of the mucus and some liquid soap and water and dry it overnight. I rotate about 3 sponges, and that way they'll last me about 3 or 4 months doing it that way, and they cost like $3.50 a piece, so it's not a big expense versus some other gauzes that are out there. Scars. I wear a lot of scars, and I find that the triangle scars work best. I like to get them pretty long, usually about 5 to 6 feet, and 8 inches in the middle to kind of hide my trach tube. I'll show at the end how I tie one on. But these are nice lightweight, so they're breathable. They don't bother my breathing at all, although I do wear a Casimir speaking valve, but it's not an issue for me. Triangle scarves, you can find them online. Just Google triangle scarves. And you can also find them on Etsy. Most scarves like these are about $15 to $20. So it's beaded trach chains. This is not me, but with beaded trach chains, I, in 9 years, even though I've been making jewelry for 16 years, I have no interest in making them or wearing them. Some beads, a lot of beads are dyed and they can fade. Using thread, they can stretch or break. Using beading wire, the problem with beading wire is you've got to get good quality type, and also crimps. And crimps are what holds the wire together. And crimps can fail. And even if you use quality beading wire or quality crimps and great crimping technique, they can still fail. And the problem with that is then, there's the risk of the tube falling out. So I just, have no interest in that. And they are available online, and they are nice looking. But to me, it's a safety issue.
Right, we can have your demonstration, please, with your scarves.
Okay, so this is my scarf. And I just tie it on in the front, move the ends toward the back. That way it covers everything. It's, I'm not embarrassed that I've got a trach, but I think it affects people looking at me. So I wear a scarf, and I'm very comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barb. That was great to see what clever ideas that you're using that aren't, on the market, but you've managed to get some great products. I'm going to hand over to Michael now for question and answers.
Presenters, thank you all for those rich stories, and also for the creative solutions that you have made in response to long-standing challenges in managing a tracheostomy tube. For the first part of the Q&A session, I'm going to direct some questions to each of the presenters. The purpose of these questions is to try to draw out the bigger themes from all your very different challenges and your solutions. First question I'd like to ask is, what obstacles or barriers did you have to overcome to complete your project? Or what objects or barriers do you see to implementing or fulfilling your project? First person I'd like to direct this question to is Nina.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I would say one of the big, after our first training session last year, one of the big sort of moments of feedback that we received from a lot of the attendees was, great, we're able to attend, we're able to travel, lose a day's pay potentially, but what about our 10, 20, 30 other colleagues that aren't able to make the commute, are not able to sort of receive this training and gain sort of training with this model. And that was one of the first sort of pieces of feedback where we decided to then pivot sort of how we were able to distribute and think about sustainability long term. And so actually, a few weeks ago, we were able to conduct a second pilot. And with this, we pivoted to more of a train the trainer model in which, we conducted the training again with a small group of general practitioners in Kigali within the capital city of Rwanda. And then upon completion, allow these individuals to then take home with them a kit filled with the tracheostomy model that we developed, along with supplies, along with curriculum and video PowerPoints to then be able to take that back to their home institution, train others, continue the practice, and eventually then even as caregivers and patients want that exposure to that training, we can also sort of allow that as second phase. And so this was one of our largest hurdles, and are just sort of beginning the second phase and collecting feedback on how that's going.
Nina, it sounds like one of the other low resources in Rwanda was time. It was availability. But your solution for this was to have the train the trainer model and to have experts come back and to share with everyone else who wasn't able to attend.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks, Michael, for summarizing.
Gil, could you share with us what obstacles are before you to prevent the further development of trach alarm or of your device?
Yeah. I prepared a couple of slides for this. Sandy, I don't know if you can pull that back up. The challenges I'm facing are not so much technological, and the feedbacks I've gotten from clinicians and other, I would say, immediate stakeholders has in general been very good in terms of understanding the need. However, when we're talking about developing a medical device, even though tracheostomies are fairly common and growing, when speaking about medical devices, it's not a huge market. And the trach itself is pretty cheap to make as a trach by itself, and you need to prove that you can really improve the outcomes of patients if you want to add a cost, even if it's not very large, to the trach itself. And so there is a problem there. In terms of regulation that is needed, this is a completely external device, but still needs FDA clearance or CE and the like in order to have a clinical trial. I have to say that if I, as a clinician, were shown a device like this, I would say, okay, now show me the clinical trial results showing that this is at least as good as, or hopefully prevented adverse events. And in order to do that, you need that at least initial clearance from the regulatory authorities. And maybe the biggest challenge is the market or strategic plan of compensation model. Eventually, if somebody will need to put in money for this thing in order to get the FDA approval, in order to do clinical trials, etc., you will need to show that this can somehow be sustainable. It is probably not very likely that this is something which is what we call B2C, like business to customer, even though it sounds very promising that you can just pick it up in a store or order it on Amazon. It is hard to get medical devices to work in that fashion. And so you need to figure out who will be willing to pay. Will it be insurance companies? Will it be hospitals, etc.? And what will the business model be? Will you be using kind of available codes which are already billable, like continuous pulse ox monitoring, etc.? I'm sorry if I'm getting very technical, but this is kind of the nitty-gritty details of reality if you want to make a medical device work. And so I will have to say as well, on a personal level, that I will probably not quit my day job as a pediatric ENT surgeon, and therefore I would be happy to find a strategic partner in general in order to help make this a reality, and also possibly help with funding, at least for the initial stages, and also somebody who is passionate about this subject and capable in order to kind of take off to the next level. So definitely still some obstacles, not the technological ones so much. I do feel that is in a good position, but kind of the real world, again, challenges I'm facing.
Gil, it sounds like you need business partners with at least two different realms of expertise. One is someone who's just who's familiar with all of the demanding paperwork for device for getting a device tested and approved. And the second well of expertise that you need to draw from is someone who can take a device market it to a very special population of medical devices.
Yep.
I hope that the GTC's webinar can help spread that message for to invite that collaboration, to invite that partnership with you, because the potential of safe trach is huge.
Thank you.
Dorothy and Darleen, what are the challenges that you two see for your device to be adopted or implemented?
Well, we are actually in the process of doing a pilot study. We have reached out to and have collaborators that are willing to work with us to do the pilot study. So we are doing very well with that. So just getting the insurance, as Gil said, getting the early adopters and getting it into the patients. But we are, have a pipeline to that for now.
You two have spent a lot of time iteratively developing your product, such that, and proof of this is that you're ready to go to market. It sounds like you have some people who are willing to take the next step to perform a study with it, and that will make it easier for people to act as early adopters. You can point to not just the development, but hopefully you can point to the study to say, look at these results.
Correct. And we're trying to, do that as well to get feedback for, insurance reimbursement.
Excellent. Barb, same question for you, but maybe just a slightly different twist. Barb, what challenges or obstacles do you think other people with tracheostomy tubes have for not adopting any of the stainless steel alternatives for securing a tracheostomy tube?
So, people, it's necessity is the motherhood of invention. And another option too, beside the figural style that I use, that's used a lot in pediatrics, is a ball chain, which is the chain that you pull your ceiling fan to turn on. That's used a lot too for trach chains. And so yeah, it's whatever you can find and make it work.
Okay. I have several. Oh, Gil, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick comment about Barbara's idea. I have run into some pediatric patients who, or the families that struggle with the regular ties because of the patients pulling them off, etc. So I think that's a great idea for somebody who is running into that, not just from the aesthetic concern, but also from a safety concern and kind of habitual concerns if they're there to try out.
We have some audience member questions. So Nicole Jenkins, a critical care nurse from New Zealand, has asked some questions for Dorothy and Darleen. Here's one of the questions. Will trach alarms still work if the tip of if there's a partial decannulation effectively? The tip of the cannula is still inside the stoma.
So trach alarm attaches to the phalange. So if the phalange moves, the alarm will move with it and detect that movement. So as long as the phalange moves, it would detect it. If the phalange doesn't move, it will not detect a decannulation.
But in our experience, it is the phalange would have to move outward in order for it to be moved internally. It would have to be moved outward first.
Very good. And next question is for Nina. This is from Melissa Gulizia. Is the 3D model available to order in the United States?
Yeah, thank you for reaching out about that. So this was something at the GTC conference actually last year. A few people had reached out wanting to potentially collaborate. And yes, so originally this project was something where, I and my partners were printing this in a small sort of facility. We were doing it by hand. And so again, this information is public and we just published with the GTC Tracheostomy Journal. And so all of our sort of 3D printing, the model, the equipment, the materials we used, how we did it, what printer to use is all available through that publication. With that said, I'm happy to collaborate directly with you. I don't know if Michael were able to share emails at the end of this, or if it's easier if I put my contact information in the chat, but I'm happy to partner. I'm happy to work with you to create as many models as you would need to sort of get you what you need. So I'm happy to do so.
Don't put your email in the chat just yet, Nina. I'm going to defer that question to other members from the GTC leadership who are on to advise best how to make the panelists' contact information, if they want, available. Instead, I'm going to ask another question. Gil, this one's going to you. Here, this is basically a question to ask you to elaborate more about the design that you have in mind. I'm just going to read this verbatim, and I'll let you sit with it. Could you elaborate more, please, about the weight and pressure of your cabin strap device?
Great question. So pressure right now is minimal. We can incorporate things similar to the H&E or PMV, but right now it is fairly open. The cap itself right now is mostly made up of a end-tidal CO2 sensor that we kind of bootstrapped. We actually took one from the regular anesthesia circuit in the hospital, x-rayed it, saw how we can cut it down, and 3D printed it to fit a standard trach. And so it's fairly open. Doesn't add pressure. In terms of weight and size, that is a concern. It's something that we can definitely reduce and appreciate once we hopefully produce en masse and not just kind of bootstrap sensors that were not made for that. But still, even with our prototype device, which you can see, if you remember the images that I showed, is still kind of clunky. Our adult test volunteer did fine. He could ambulate with it, and he had no significant discomfort, and it didn't kind of shift his trach in terms of weight, etc.
Excellent. This next question, there are a couple comments, Dorothy and Darleen, saying that they are looking forward to your contact information being released so that people can get in contact with you about the trach alarm. There is interest inside the United States and outside the United States. I guess after this webinar and after the release of your information, be checking your email. Barb, this next comment is going to be directed towards you. For yourself, or for any one other person with a tracheostomy too that you know of, have you noticed whether chains or beads reduce any kind of injuries on the skin?
So I've noticed, especially moderating the Facebook Tracheostomy Warriors, that rashes do develop, heat rashes develop under the foam trach ties. And so by having a beaded chain or a stainless steel chain, there's a lot more airflow. And so the skin doesn't get as damp and warm, and fewer rashes would be expected.
Excellent. Nina, this is a comment for you, not a question. It's a comment of praise. This is from Jyoti Singh. I'm a clinical nurse specialist in New Zealand within a pediatric home care service. I'm currently doing my master's. My project is to implement an education package for community nurses due to low confidence and and skills amongst colleagues. We don't really do a lot of hands-on care, but we do a lot of assessments, managing and coordinating troubleshooting. I think the low-cost, high-fidelity model will be useful for our service and wondered how we can go about using one for the service. Jyoti, I'm going to point you back to Nina's comment earlier about her being willing to collaborate and information being available. But Nina, is there anything else that you want to say to Jyoti?
No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your interest in your story and experience. I'm definitely happy to collaborate, sort of work through and find the best fit for the population you're working with and the specialists that you're helping to train. Thank you.
Barb, we have another person with a tracheostomy tube who says that David Lee, who says that he's had success using 5mm cotton straps, and he changes them once every 2 weeks. One more question. I believe that this is for Dorothy and Darleen. What is the alarm threshold? I'm just going to read this verbatim to you. What is the alarm threshold if a patient pulls on the trach tube, causing the tube to partially pull out, but then inserts it back in when the patient stops pulling? Maybe the questioner here is asking about false alarms.
False alarms. We do have a built-in mechanism to detect false alarms. So there's a maybe 5-second pause before it will detect, and that's to cut down on false alarms.
Excellent. Unfortunately, everyone, we are out of time. So Sandy and I are going to wrap up this webinar. First announcement is please save the date for the next webinar, which is going to be August 13th. Join the GTC again for a multidisciplinary panel and representatives from people with tracheostomy tubes or their families. Next, please consider making a submission to the Tracheostomy Journal. It is the official journal of the Global Tracheostomy Collaborative, and a number of our leaders are editors on the journal. Next, the GTC has a new website. It's clean, it's fresh, it has bells and whistles. I hear it will even do your taxes. No, joking about that last part. But if you want to receive all the new benefits of the learning modules and to join with other healthcare professionals, managing people with tracheostomy tube, and to connect with other patients or family members, create an account. Even if you previously were a member of the old website, make a new account again because none of that information was transferred over. And finally, join us in Melbourne, Australia on October 1st for the 10th International Tracheostomy Symposium. Besides coming to talk with other healthcare professionals and patients and family members with a tracheostomy tube, you're going to be in Australia. It's business and it's pleasure. Finally, the word I got back from our president is that the contact information from our panelists will be sent out. So for everyone who was wanting to talk with one of the panelists to follow up about their innovative solutions, please look for that email from the GTC. And with that, thank you and for joining us. And I hope to see you all on August 13th.